Okay, so we'll just finish it off. Went down a bit, so I'm just leveling it out, so I think. Very quickly. Well, these are these are, I don't know, Jedi or Sith skills. What? So about there, sort of thing. Then we get our formula, sort of thing. Give it a good shake up, as you do, and then just pour it on something. And make sure your pot is level. If your bucket isn't level, you can put something under it at this stage and get it to level, sort of thing. And then and if we've done our work, it will be roughly brim, and then it will settle down. Excess will come out that little hole, and you give it a bit of a flush through to get rid of any excess salts and things like that. We can find, I think, there, find the plastic thing in there, and then we can plant some plants in it and see how they go, sort of thing. I think you're going to be pretty surprised. I do like the brown colour, whether it's going to go to a nice dark grey over time. But what we're trying to do is we don't want it to go anaerobic, because then we'll get methanogenesis occurring. So if there's any iron in there, iron has an incredible tendency to pull in oxygen, and you would think, well, hang on, if it's pulling in oxygen and locking in oxygen, there's oxygen there, but not necessarily. It's so tightly bound. I mean, it's more strongly bound to iron than it would be to cyanide, so you can actually save someone from cyanide poisoning by getting them to, bite down on a bit of either rust or iron sulfate very quickly, and you can actually bring someone back, because the oxygen will rather go to the iron than to the cyanide, sort of thing. So, and the body has ways of getting the oxygen off the iron then. So yeah, you can actually recover somebody that way if you've inadvertently stumbled upon someone with some cyanide poisoning, a low level dose or sort of thing. Yeah, so anyway, so the idea is there may be actually a connection to salt. I think it's actually a connection to cyanophyta. I think cyanophyta have a tendency to actually require salt, and then you can get them to grow in the pot, and they'll start producing, as we think, carbon disulfide in the nether regions of the pot, and that'll come up, and it's like probably a substitute for CO2 or something like that. So it's actually the carbon disulfide growing the plants, basically, and also the cyanophyta can actually fix nitrogen from the atmosphere as well. So there's probably some really complex symbiosis going on there. Yeah, but as I say, you do need, as I said, to make carbon disulfide, you need two things. You need sulfur, and you need some sort of carbon source. It could be, as I said, peat, coir, newspaper cellulose, as in this case, or it could probably even be charcoal. But we have found that charcoal down the bottom of the pots doesn't go well. And that may be because it contains too much iron. So, so you want something, though some people have said that there's a lot of cotton in newspaper cellulose, sort of thing, rag cotton sort of thing, used for the, and of course that's got the gamma bond, so it's much slower to break down. So yeah. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. But it's just sort of that book I showed you earlier with Charles-Darwin, and his sort of early work with just basic sodium and potassium salts, and yeah, the difference was astounding between the two. Maybe that's where this idea that they don't like nutrients come from. They don't like the NPK sort of thing comes from. But anyway, we'll see how we go. But I think we're going to do a lot better now. I think we've got a bit of direction now. And of course, having the newspaper cellulose in the pot, it says you don't have to have it standing in water during the wet or the winter time. But in summer, you only have to have a little bit of water, or you can just do it from the top, and it will keep it all nice and moist, but not so that it's anaerobic sort of thing. And it also gives a bit of a flush through, and you don't need much, 500 mils probably is quite adequate per day on a hot day, because it's all contained with the, and then the roots can go down. They can interact with any cyanophyte or any mycorrhizal interrelationship sort of thing. and so on and so forth, and go from there. But as I said, it was yeah, I started reading it again, and as I just came across this page, and it just sort of, as I said, it stood out like a sore thumb. It's probably in better light now, I don't know if you can read that. That's the sodium salts and that's the potassium salt, and it's such a stark difference from yeah, from that. And of course he went on to do other stuff as well, and so on and so on. And it is a chapter in here. I'll see what else, anything else I can pick out. There's a lot of verbiage and stuff, so but basically he put the results basically at the front, you know. Well, the interesting bit, but I don't think anyone realised how interesting it was. Unless you've done this sort of work here, you don't realise how interesting that frontispiece of the chapter is. Just quite amazing. It's eye-opening. I think that's probably where the this idea they don't like NPK comes from. It definitely comes from the K, basically. But anyway, and then of course it probably leads into this modern day idea that they're pumping the plants up with salt, which came from some lecture that one of the two greats of permaculture did. It was doing stuff on the blackboard, and it was about 8 minutes in, I think it was, and he just happened to make this statement about, you know, modern day agriculture, they're basically pumping the plants up with salt. So yeah. Anyway, so that's probably about it for the time being. That will settle through, and then I'll give it a bit of a flush, and then it should be ready to go. Put some plants in it, and we'll see where we go from there. And yeah, okay. I do like the colour though. That nice brown colour. It's just sort of like I like chocolate colour, a coffee colour. Maybe that's where all this idea about coffee grounds comes from. It's got absolutely nothing to do with or there is a tenuous connection or association with coffee, basically, and tea and other things like that. So yeah, it's probably a fishing exposition to see how much you actually know, how much knowledge. Have you cracked it yet? Have you reached pay dirt? And should they get worried? Should they have to deal with these sort of things? Anyway, over and out for now. See ya.